You can feel your attention span getting worse. A few years ago, you could read a whole book. Now you feel like you can't even make your way through a few pages until you pick up your phone. Whenever you try to do the things that you tell yourself you want to do, you end up distracted. This video is your guide on how to stop wasting so much time, how to regain your focus, and how to get the things done that you want to do. I'm going to talk about little experiments that you can do to improve your focus, concentration, and get things done, but also little changes that you could make that will make it much more likely that you'll make your way through the tasks that you want to do. Starting with idea number 1. In Shubhru Izadi's book on creating healthier eating habits, she talks about the idea that your urges and your cravings should be seen as yoo-hoos, not to-dos. In other words, they are alerts, they're not commands. And when you feel the urge to stop what you're doing, to waste time on TikTok, or to drop your important task for a much less important task, it's the same deal. You're experiencing an alert, not a command. Which is why the first idea is about logging your alerts. Think of yourself like a car, but you're way more complex and beautiful and amazing, obviously. When an alert for your car appears on your dashboard, a little red flashing symbol, you have a book that you can open. You can look up what that alert means, and usually it'll give you some instructions on what you need to do to make the alert go away, to fix the alert. When we get internal alerts in the form of urges to waste time, we don't have a book where we can look up what that urge or alert means. One of our life jobs is to create that book. And usually they're not telling you what you think they're telling you. For example, if you are in the middle of a task and then you get this urge, it's like, you know what you need to do? Drop absolutely everything and go down this massive rabbit hole for 2 hours. That's not all your alert is telling you. Almost always these alerts come with feelings. For example, your alert might be telling you, actually, I'm really bored. I'm frustrated, I'm low energy, I'm feeling antsy. If you log your alerts for even just a day, you will notice that there's much more to them than how they appear to you. What you want to do is every single time you feel an alert or an urge to waste time, you want to note it down. Imagine that it is a visual alert on your dashboard. Your goal isn't to get rid of the alerts. Your goal is to understand the alerts better. Idea number 2. So there's something called diminishing marginal utility, and usually when it's studied and talked about, it's talked about in relation to food, but it also applies to most consumption. Basically, the more you consume something, the less pleasure you get from it and the less you like it. For example, in one study of 290 people, they had everyone eating identically sized little pieces of chocolate. And after each piece, the participants were asked to rate how good each piece of chocolate tasted. As you can imagine, their perception of how good this chocolate tastes decreased with every piece that they ate. Most people needed about 10 pieces before their taste perception was heavily impacted. Or in other words, the chocolate just wasn't as exciting. Some people actually initially rated the chocolate taste perception as higher, like they were more excited about the chocolate generally, and their decline in taste perception was slower. So they ate on average 12 pieces before their taste perception was really impacted. The same thing can be true of consumption of any kind, but usually we're not mindful enough as we consume to notice this taste perception decrease. For example, I think most people, if you're watching this kind of content, you have had the experience where you've been watching TV, watching TikTok, wasting your time in general, and then all of a sudden it's like you look up and you're like, ugh, I feel awful. Like, this is horrible. I'm getting up. This is terrible. You've been feeling that way for a while. It's just that you've only really just become mindful of it. That is a lack of mindful consumption, which is why the second idea is about running a mini experiment where you treat your consumption of anything that is distracting like the chocolate experiment. That experiment in itself would have made people way more mindful of the taste of the chocolate. They probably would have consumed more had they not been in the experiment. Because usually you're not rating your taste perception after each little piece. So don't try to change anything. Don't try to stop wasting your time, but make a point to, as you notice yourself wasting time, whether you're down an article rabbit hole or you're on social media, make a point to continue rating your experience mindfully. You want to write down your rating of your experience. So is it a 7 out of 10, like, are you having the best time? Is it like a 5 out of 10? Is it a 4 out of 10? How does it decrease over time? How quickly does it decrease over time? Rate your mood. Is it improving over time? Is it lessening over time? This is not about banning consumption, because just like chocolate, a lot of our distractions can actually be fun when they're consumed mindfully. But what do you do if you are the person who sits in the second camp? You are the person who initially is much more excited about the distraction or the chocolate, as per the study, to the point where you tend to just eat more than other people or consume more than other people. So my view from my personal experience with this, as someone who loves a little binge, is that if you're the type of person who would eat 12 chocolate pieces instead of 10, you are probably the type of person that associates more shame with your distracted behaviors. It probably feels more forbidden. You probably have more judgment around that behavior than the average person. But the more that you let yourself engage with that behavior in a very, very mindful way, the more you work at de-shaming it, the more you'll fall back into the normal range. I'll say from my own experience, it takes a while and it takes persistence, but if you practice this mindful consumption, I promise it will make a difference. Idea number 3. In the book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the author recommends that whenever you're decluttering anything, you take everything out of its regular space. And that's because when stuff is in its regular space, it's like you can't really see it clearly. You get to see them in a fresh light, from a fresh perspective. And I do this every single time I declutter because the first time I did it, I was like, wow, this makes a really big difference in decluttering. I get rid of a lot more. And when it comes to our time, we need to do the same thing. You need to start seeing all the things that you're doing from a fresh perspective. Which is why the next idea is around tracking how you spend your time and how you spend your time correlates with your mood, your energy, how in flow you are, how focused you are. For just a day, set a timer every hour on the hour and ask yourself to log these things. Ashley Whillans in her book Time Smart wrote, being stuck in tasks that we don't like and we can't control is one of the leading causes of time poverty. Time poverty being that feeling of, oh my God, I just don't have enough time. So basically doing stuff that you don't enjoy and that you don't feel in control of leads to you wasting more time. Which is why it's so important to actually become aware of the tasks that you are doing and how you are perceiving them as you do them. It's so important to become aware of how often you feel that way. Like how often are you feeling like, wow, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing and I don't feel in control of what I'm doing. That way you can start making changes so that you're doing more things that you enjoy. Therefore not getting distracted as much and getting more done. Idea number 4. So this is an idea that I shared in my video on how to create a way better to-do list, which I will have linked down below, but I wanted to expand on it a little bit. And it's about HelloFreshing your tasks. Bear with me. You know how when you have a HelloFresh box sitting fresh in your fridge, the idea of making food feels a lot easier versus having to find a good recipe, grocery shop for the recipe, prep all of the ingredients, and then make a meal. And that's because they've made it feel easy for you. This isn't sponsored, by the way. It should be. Basically, they've given you all the information that you need on one card. You don't have to think. You can create a HelloFresh box equivalent for the tasks that you seem to get the most distracted by, or the tasks that you're resisting the most that you know you may struggle to get done. Instead of ingredients, you might write a list of the tools that you need, whether there's a phone number or a link that you need. Instead of a recipe, you might have instructions for your future self that really detail what steps you need to take to get the thing done. You might include launch tasks, which I also talked about in my video on creating a better to-do list. That way it feels easy to start. Include the amount of time it might take to complete each step so that the task feels even easier. Paint a picture of the final result, just like HelloFresh do with their recipe picture. And to make the task feel easier to focus and concentrate on so that you don't get so distracted, you can include flow elements, which leads me into the next idea. Idea number 5. In the book Finding Flow, the author talks about how he visited this audio-visual production factory line. If it sounds like a boring place to work, it's because generally it is. Most of the workers that the author interviewed at this factory considered the job to be pretty boring and also beneath them, except for a man named Rico. Rico thought the job was hard, that it required skill. Even though he was doing the same task as everyone else, he made it his personal mission to do that task as elegantly as possible. Roughly 400 times a day, a camera would land in front of him and he would need to check the camera, make sure that it met all of the system specifications. And he was given about 43 seconds to make these checks. Over the years, he had reduced his average to 28 seconds. And when he talked about his work and his accomplishments, he was like, it's better than anything else I could be doing, much better than watching TV. It's this weird paradox where instead of putting less effort into the more mundane tasks, Rico put more effort in, and he got a lot more out of it because he put more effort in. And it was a lot easier for him to stay focused because of the additional effort that he put in. He added in the elements of flow that a lot of people talk about, which is a very clear goal to lessen his time, clear feedback. It was very clear every single time how long he would take to review these cameras, a challenge, a sense of control, very few distractions. With just a little bit of extra effort, you can make your tasks easier to focus on because you can add in elements that are more likely to put you into that flow state. You can also tack this idea onto your last idea. If you HelloFresh any task, add on a little flow section. How are you going to make this task feel more flowy? Idea number 6. When it comes to meditating, and don't hit stop just because you don't meditate, but a lot of people assume that if they have a lot of thoughts while they meditate, they're doing it wrong. But meditation isn't at all about learning to have no thoughts. It's about learning to manage your distracting thoughts when they arise. You are training your brain to firstly notice when you're distracted, which in itself is a hard thing to do. Sometimes it takes us ages to realize, oh, I'm distracted. Meditation is about helping you to realize sooner. But it's also training you to be able to gently move your attention away from the distraction towards your breath. So distracting thoughts during meditation are actually good because they give you a chance to practice another rep. And the more reps you do, the better you get at managing your attention. You don't get less thoughts through meditation. You just learn to handle your thoughts better. Which is why this next idea is about seeing distractions as a good thing, actually. Every time you get sucked into an article about the drama between Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens on a High School Musical set, and you notice that you are distracted, incredible. You've just noticed that you're distracted, which is an ability that people train into their brain through intensive meditation practices. And every time you notice that you are distracted, it is an opportunity to train your attention. Meditation is always seen as this like sit down for half an hour habit that a lot of people struggle to do. It doesn't have to be. You can train your attention at any point during the day. Like, obviously, if you want to get to monk level, yes, you need to do the sit down stuff. And yes, it can help. But you can still have those little meditation moments all throughout your day and be training your attention. You can use any moment during the day when you are distracted to practice noticing that you are distracted and moving your attention back to whatever you need to move your attention back to. Just like in meditation, you're never gonna not get distracted by your thoughts or by urges. Like, they're always gonna come up. Especially if you are an excitable and curious, interested person and you are attracted to novelty and you're interested in life. Distractions are part of it. But you can manage how you respond to distractions and you can retrain how you respond to those distractions. If you liked this video and you are trying to get more focus, get more done, maybe things like time blocking don't work for you or the Eisenhower matrix just doesn't really vibe with you, I have a really good video on how to create a way better to-do list. I'm gonna have it linked down in the description below as well as on the screen. I appreciate you so much and I will see you soon.